just want to, send our sympathies to the Clark family. Hearing about Coach Clark this morning, certainly was terrible news. Great guy. Coach lost the profession lost a heck of a coach, but a great family man. And someone I consider a really good friend. So really terrible news. And send our sympathies to Central Florida App State and his families. For us, it's trying to just fix these kinks, that we've got. Certainly not in the position that we were planning on being in through week 4. Losing 2 games by a field goal or less. And the worst part is, it's a lot of self-inflicted things. I mean, you go back and watch the tape, 2 weeks in a row, we just did not tackle very well on defense. And for 2 weeks to start with, I thought we did a really good job of that. Some of that is, I don't think we always did the best job communicating kind of where the fits were. But some of it's just, you got to run through tackles, bring your feet, wrap up, run your feet, and you got to get them on the ground. And we got to do a better job of that. So we got to go back to the tackling fundamentals, which we work every week, but we got to overemphasize it. Offensively, there are a lot of things that were a whole lot better, but the self-inflicted wounds, the penalties, those are the things that when you have 8 of them on offense, that affects everything. It affects your red zone scoring. It affects your points at the end of the game. It affects your efficiency. It affects your negative play percentage. It affects your conversion rate. It affects everything that you do. And, we've got to find a way to stop doing it. It's things that you got to coach the discipline, knowing when to let go. A lot of it, most of it, all of it is technical. And it's things that we got to get cleaned up. Good football teams don't beat themselves. And right now, the difference between being 3-1 and 1-3 or self-inflicted wounds that we've got to clean up and get better. So, talked about having to get better every week all the way up to conference. And I do think we've cleaned some things up and we've gotten better in some areas, but some of these issues that are lingering got to get taken care of, and we got to do it with a bunch of urgency because, here we are and got a really good Marshall team coming into town that does a lot of different stuff on offense and defense, a lot of different variables. They're going to blitz from the jump, from getting off the bus. They're going to bring pressure. They're going to challenge you. They're going to try to put extra hats in the box. On offense, they're going to read you in every way possible, front side and back side. They're going to run the quarterback and add a hat that way. And, they've got a backfield by committee. Those guys do a really good job. And they've got some receivers that, they've got a guy that they're going to put the ball in his hands, and they got a couple of them that are making plays down the field. So, they're playing better going into conference as well. So, we got to work on our issues. Certainly, we got a bit of an injury bug here that we got to work through. But we always have, and people step up, and we certainly need them to this week and for the rest of the year, to be honest with you.
Let's see how they going.
Rob is back in town, so he had to stay in Michigan, treating it like a really bad concussion. So, he's I would say he's very doubtful for this week.
Who else that you were just referring to? Or is it a continuation?
Yeah, we're probably going to lose George and Gooch for the season at tackle. And we got a couple other guys that are questionable. I'll kind of wait and see how that goes throughout the week, kind of see where we're at. But, probably the O-line's probably the biggest. 4 of our top 5 tackles going into the season are out right now. So we got to shuffle the deck a little bit, move some things around. Hopefully we get Mackey back this week. That would help. He was very limited last week. But, it's pretty thin there.
Can he play right tackle?
He can. Yeah, he can.
Going into conference, does this give your team a chance to basically flip the page, get a fresh start?
Well, it has to, and that's the thing that we talked about, right? You'd feel a whole lot better if you were 3-1 right now. You'd feel a whole lot better if you found a way to win those 2 games. But the reality is that it has no bearing on the second half of the season. It has no bearing on the conference part of it, So, for us, you got 8 games left, and they're all conference games, and they all matter a whole lot. So, for us, you got to flip the page. And there's a lot of things to take from the first 4 games that you want to do well, need to replicate, need to do better, need to do more consistently. But there's just things, like I said, that just kind of keep lingering. But it's like, you feel like as soon as you get them fixed, you got a chance to turn this thing around pretty quick, but we got to do it now, because this is the first conference game and they matter.
How do you feel, or how do you, I guess, keep the morale up of a team like this that's dealing with so many injuries and coming off of the loss against Eastern Michigan?
Well, I think when you work as hard as this group has, you don't let it go, and that's the bottom line. We've dealt with injuries, the last 4 years that have been, just kind of, really just challenging, right, to say the least, in the spots that they're in. And our team has always responded. They've always stepped up when they needed to. And this is no different. We got to have the same thing happen. So, these guys have worked really hard to have a really good season. And when you care a whole lot about something, you can't give up on it, just because things aren't going your way. I think you got to go back to work. And we talked about it yesterday. It doesn't matter how you feel. Doesn't matter the way you feel after a game. Doesn't matter, how the emotions that you have. You just got to go back to work, and you got to keep working. And that's what they've done every week. They show up and they go to work and practice really well. And it's we've improved in some areas, just not enough where we need to be. You have to keep your eyes on what's in front of you, and you have to learn from the things behind you. And the conference is what we've always talked about. Like, that's the goal, was to go win conference. And, we have to decide if that's possible or not. And I think, people love to tell you what's not possible. Everybody loves to tell you what you can't do. And that's what we talked about. But possible, right, and what's a possibility for this team is what we decide it is. And that's what we talk about. What can we control going forward? And, there's a lot of things when you watch it that you say, God, if we just do this a little bit better, you're getting the results you want. So we got to do those things a little bit better, and we got to continue to try to do that. And this team responds, this group responds. They're one of the most fun groups that I've been around, because even as bad as it is right now, right, when the outlook of everything, you can't tell. Like, they show up and they go to work, and it matters to them. Certainly Sunday in the team meeting, they were crushed after that game. They should be. We all were. But once we got out on the field, it was turn the page to the next one and go to work on the next one.
This Marshall team that you're facing this weekend looks a whole lot different than the last time you saw them in the Sun Belt Championship game. What have you made of what this new coaching staff and this reshuffled roster has been able to do this year?
They did a really good job rebuilding the roster. It's almost the whole roster is new. I think on offense, they got 3 guys that are back that were on the team. On defense, they have a couple guys that were there, left and came back. But most of them are all new. They've done a really good job rebuilding it. They've got you can see kind of what they're looking for in the way they build it. They have big D linemen up front that are kind of 2-gap guys that are going to hold up blocks. Their linebackers are all similar skill sets. They move those pieces around a whole lot. Their safeties are kind of the same. They can do a bunch of different things. You can tell they built it the way that, you can tell that they've got a plan, and coach has been really successful as a defensive coordinator. I think he's very methodical about what he wants to do on defense, and he's put those pieces together for it. Offensively, I think they've done a good job replacing playmakers with playmakers. They've got good wideouts on the outside. Like I said, it's running back by committee right now. It's kind of someone different every week. They've played 3 quarterbacks, but number 7 who played last week played really well. Ran the ball well, threw it well. It's they've done a good job rebuilding it, is what I would say.
Coach, when y'all went back and looked at the film on the last drive, from the kickoff to the 27-yarder, like what would you change, or what happened? What did y'all see on film as far as what happened on that last drive that they had?
Yeah, well, I think you have to start with the kick. That wasn't, we called a squib kick, which that's one thing. Our squib kicks typically we use at the end of the half. Okay, and we're basically when the end of the half, you're trying to hit somebody, right? And maybe you get a cheap one and steal it. At the end of the game, I think it's got to be a different scenario. And I don't know, that was communicated very well. We shouldn't have squib kicked it is what I will say. And if you do, then what you got to do is it's a different type of kick. You're not trying to hit somebody. So you get them the ball in the 35. So that was a mistake right there. The biggest thing I think was really probably the explosive. Other than that, it was their nickel and diming it, which you're good with, right? You're trying to make them take up time. Like the first ball, they completed for 7, but it's inbound, short of the first. They have to burn timeout. Like all that stuff was to plan. I think it was 3rd and 1, maybe the explosive down the field. We're in zone coverage. They ran a concept that they run a lot. We got some pressure on the quarterback. He started to flush, and our safety that's in coverage, that's the hinge player that's playing it top down. I don't know if the scramble got his eyes off of it, but he steps up and he sees the shallow coming, jumps the shallow, and they throw it over our head. When we were in zone, someone asked me, was it a mistake? Did y'all think it was going to be a run? And no, we're in zone coverage. We were fine with them running the ball. We were going to try to stop it with the front and the linebackers. It's just eye discipline. We came off of it. And then after that, they got down to field goal range, and then you're just trying to, create a negative play. I thought we competed on some balls down the field, stuff like that, won some coverage reps, but they were already in field goal range, and, they got a kicker with a big leg who hit it.
I know the offensive line is a different deal in depth chart wise right now, but are you in a situation now where most of the other areas where you have to shrink the how many players you're playing, or are you not really thinking that as a coach?
Well, defensively, we're not playing a ton. We're playing 4 linebackers, for 2 or 3 spots, depending on if you're in base or not. I think we got to figure out at nickel what we need to do. That was obviously that we didn't play as good there as we wanted to, as we have in the past with Elam out. So we got to figure that out. At safety, we're playing 2 most of the game, playing a third, a little bit. At corner, we played 4, and I thought those guys played pretty well. Defensively, I think we, D-line, we're rolling guys still, and I think they're playing good. Offensively, there's really not a whole lot of options there. At tight end, the 3 guys that are playing are the ones that need to play. At running back, we're kind of doing the way we said we're going to do it. At wideout, I think you gotta keep, especially with Rob probably out, you're gonna have to keep playing those guys. And we got guys that are playing a lot better there. We're playing a lot better at wide out and tight end, and all those guys in the throw game. So, I think you got to figure out the personnel, the right fit, in the right spots. But I think on defense, that's probably losing Elam was, he was playing at a pretty high level for us. And that's something that we got to play better there. Whether it's the guys that are there or continue to promote competition there.
Can one of the safeties that don't play as much play that spot?
I don't know. I don't know. We got to figure out the best 11 and try to do it, and that's what we got to do this week. Is maybe it's Court, maybe it's Brent, maybe it's another safety. I don't. We got to figure that part of it out. And we got to challenge those guys to play better. They're guys that it's their opportunity, and they didn't play the way they want to. Maybe it's first game, whatever, but we got to play better there.
With Rob out, how huge was it for kind of Shelton Sampson to kind of have a mini breakout game this past week heading into this week?
Yeah, I think for Shelton I think he needed that really bad. The thing I was the most proud of was, at the end of the half, he had a chance to catch a touchdown at the end of the half and didn't come down with it. But in the second half, he came up with some big catches and big plays for us. So to see him bounce back, I think that was what we kind of been waiting for a little bit. The guy's got ability to go down the field and make plays. We know it. We've seen it. He just hasn't done it the way that he wants to as consistently. But for him, to me, like I said, to bounce back after that one right before half and come back and make some really big plays for us. The third down conversion for 25 yards was huge. He catches a big post in the 2-minute drill. One of them we had a penalty on, but he makes a heck of a catch on, I think it was like 3rd and 13 down the field. So he made some really big plays in that game, a couple conversion downs. So, it's good to see those guys are playing better right now. Rob, him, Jaden and Charles didn't have touches, but they're playing fast. They're playing better. So we gotta continue to spread the ball around a little bit. We got to continue to have those guys playing good. So yeah, been saying it, we're going to need him to do that. They kept adding safeties to the box. We're able to hit some throws down the field. We got to be able to do that every week. otherwise, you can still be efficient in the run game, but it's going to be hard to be explosive if the box is loaded.
What about Daniel for that same idea to get the throw game going like we talked about all last week, before conference? What did that do for him?
I certainly hope it builds his confidence a whole lot. That's kind of the way that, I don't mean to that's what we expect him to play that way. We've seen him really operate really well. Throughout spring, and I know you guys were there in the spring too. Spring game, operated really well, really clean, went where the ball needed to go, made some really good plays all through fall camp. Just settling in and going play, he looked like he was settled in. And like I said, I'll go back to the 2 interceptions were not. There's look, I'll call it what it is and what it isn't. And those were not on him. He the second one I think could have thrown it away, but you got to bust on the route where you think someone's going to be and they're not there. That's always a challenge. I thought that he played a whole lot better for us. And it's what we need him to continue to do. You saw his competitive spirit, the guy that we knew he was come out. And certainly you saw him kind of, really, we had a 2-minute drill before half, took us down there. He takes 2 shots to the end zone that I thought were really good shots to the end zone. We had a chance to score on 2 of them right before the half. Gets us in field goal range that we don't make, but gets us there. And then in the second half, the 2-minute drill, we were in a really bad spot. We were backed up and all this stuff. And he competed and made some plays down the field that were huge for us.